Hey guys, I look like I have jaundice. White balance. Hey guys, lately I have not been doing great physically. I'm not at 100% in the health department, and I don't want to get into the gory details, but I have been dealing with two separate and frustrating health problems. One long-term, the other hopefully short-term, but regardless, they have successfully ruined my plans to get out and shoot lately, and that's been crappy. So I'm going to do a couple videos which are me not being outside, being boring inside in front of the camera in my office, which is just doesn't sound very exciting, but the alternative is to not create or produce content, and that's not an option. So I figure this is a good opportunity to sit in front of the camera and take care of a couple things that lend itself to the boring format. So first thing is, I think I want to do a question and answer type video. A lot of people do those. Other YouTubers, they answer questions, and it's like show and tell day for the YouTuber person. So this is what we're gonna do though, just to mix it up. You're going to ask me some questions in the comments below, and I'm gonna answer them, but after that, I'm gonna ask you some questions. This is gonna blow your mind. I'm gonna ask you some questions at the end of that QA video, which will come out, later this week or next. And in that video, I'm gonna ask you some specific questions about you, because it's not all about me. And I'm gonna see what you guys respond to my questions for you, and I'm gonna share your answers too in a future video. So it'll be, kind of a give and take. It's not just me talking about myself or my wife, Denae, who sometimes shows up on the channel, but it's also some of you guys. So that'll be fun. So look for that and ask me some interesting and thought-provoking questions below. So in the meantime, this is about my editing process. And the reason for that is because so many of you have asked for it. I've just been kind of bombarded by requests to show you how I edit my photos. And as boring as that sounds to me, if that's interesting to you, okay, fine. I'll show you how I edit my photos. Let's pour ourselves a strong glass of ginger ale and get to work. All right, so the first thing I do, especially in a dark environment like this, is to bring down my brightness on my monitor. And the reason for that is because if I'm going to ever decide to print this, what I'll find is if I've had my brightness up full blast, that my image is not bright enough for the print. So it's a good idea to bring the brightness down on my monitor, especially these Apple monitors. So I usually bring that down below halfway. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to find a good tune or two to listen to, because why would you ever edit a photo and not be listening to good music? So we'll try this one. Yes, I like the ring of that. Obviously this artist is extremely gifted. So we're going to go ahead and hit repeat on that bad boy, and then we're going to head over to our Lightroom catalog. So the photo that we're going to try to see if I remember how I edited is not that one, this one. First off, we're gonna try to recreate that beautiful photo. So let's do that. Let me create virtual copies of these so I don't mess up the original. And then we're gonna go ahead and hit reset. This is a bit of a panoramic photo. Handheld while I was hiking with my son. You might have seen the video. This was the last photo actually that I took as we were nearing our vehicle. I saw the sun glinting out from these rocks and thought it had some potential. In the raw form, it doesn't look very special, but I knew that with a little bit of correction, this could look pretty cool. The reason I really liked it and that I did it as a bit of a panorama is because I definitely didn't want the rock to leave this much area empty on that side, if that makes sense. So I wanted this to be the border, but I didn't quite have enough on this left side to capture. I wanted this kind of sweeping. You'll see there's this shape here. In the raw format, it's not very apparent. but I knew that that could be brought out and really kind of draw the eye into this area where the sun is, and this diagonal light here. So I saw the potential, so I decided that I would take a panoramic, again, just handheld. I just could have got the tripod out, but I don't often do that because I am lazy. Guys, these days I like to start with presets that I have created. Now you'll notice in a lot of my videos I'll sell presets, and that's because I spend a lot of time on these. I usually try to build a preset pack for a specific video where there are a lot of photos that I'm proud of, and I often do it from scratch to really bring intention. I want intentionality there, and I want to understand the capabilities of Lightroom. So for me, I've really spent a lot of time building a set of presets that I'm happy with, that do what I want, especially since we're new to this area where the feature, the overriding feature that is in common to almost everywhere we shoot outside is red, orange, red rock, and teal, beautiful skies, often cloudless skies, in fact. So I've been working to find a color that I like. So often I see landscape photography in this area where it's just too orange for my taste, and maybe that's more true to what you see, but it's not my favorite when it comes to post-processing. I like a little bit more saturation, I like a little bit more red and a little bit more magenta. So to that end, I have developed what I feel like I've kind of arrived at some of my favorite tones, and that's actually from my macro videos, this macro preset, where I really spent a lot of time just diving deep into those oranges. So I am gonna start here with a preset, and I would encourage you to take a look at those presets because I like them a lot. Now, they are extremely heavy-handed on the macro side, some of these, but this one, Devil in the Details here, is a little more subtle, and I feel like probably a good place to start for this. So that's where I'm gonna start. And some people, I get this question every once in a while about sharpening. By default, Lightroom is going to add some sharpening. I almost always take that down to 0. I'll do sharpening later. I don't often add sharpening if I'm posting just to Instagram, or if I'm just posting up to the YouTube videos. There's not a lot of need to sharpen it up. Those Fuji lenses, which I'm usually shooting with, are plenty sharp. When I print though, I will sharpen, but that's after I've done my raw editing in Lightroom and I've got a JPEG out. Then I do apply some sharpening in Photoshop, but I don't do that here, so I just avoid that whole worminess debate with X-Trans files in Lightroom, blah, 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 you know, whatever. So now that I've got that, I am gonna make a few tweaks. Before I make this a panoramic, I'm going to get the settings where I want them a little bit. This is a little bit overexposed. I'm gonna just bring it down. It was actually exposed correctly to begin with, so I'm just gonna bring that to 0. My highlights, I'll bring down, not too much. I could go too far. And of course I'd bring out all these details in the clouds, but that's just a little not realistic. So I'll bring them down just to bring some detail back into that sky. The shadows, I do want to kick up these shadows though. Obviously this is a high dynamic range type situation we've got here, so I'm gonna kick those shadows up all the way. My white point, you'll notice, is blown out, and that's because the sun, you know, is in the shot basically, or part of it, so that's fine. I'm okay with that, but I'll probably bring it to about right there for the white point, and then my black point, hold down the, well, see, this preset brings up the blacks a little bit, so I'm gonna bring them back down just so I can set my black point here. I might not be explaining this very well, but I'm gonna bring it down to maybe there, and then clarity is fine. I'm probably happy with that vibrance, and I like this curve. I think you'll find that I have played with the curves in these colors as well in this preset. And I actually spent a lot of time on those. Bring this back up just a smidge. Just a little bit more of the faded, subdued look. Not too much, you can go crazy, and that's just tacky, I think, but you know, what do I know? All right, same thing here. The colors I'm pretty happy with. I like the oranges, I like the blues. This teal up here I feel like is almost there. I could go a little bit on the greener, and to do that though, I'm gonna go to the hue. My favorite thing to do is just to grab this hue button here and just drag up and down until I'm happy with it, you know. That's what I like to do, because that'll grab, you know, not just the one color, but if it shares a set of colors in that region, it will kind of bring them all. So I'll just point that a little bit more into the green end of things, a little bit more teal into those skies. I also want to maybe make them a bit darker, so I'll grab this luminance, little dealio, and just bring it down just a teeny bit. I mean, again, you could go pretty far with this if you wanted to, make it really dramatic, but also just not very realistic. I'll do a little bit more to the sky later, but this is a good starting point. I think I'm happy where things are going with that. So another thing sometimes I will do is I'll play with the dehaze. You'll notice that this brings it up. I almost always bring it up a little bit. In this case, the more you bring it up, the darker those shadows get, the moodier it is, but also the more not realistic it is. But I do want to remove a little bit of that haze that's created with that light coming across that picture. So 33, that's a pretty good number for me. I like that. I really like where we are with this. So I am going to then copy my settings here. I didn't play with white balance. I felt like it was appropriate, but I did play with exposure, and then everything else here should be good to copy and just paste on this one too. And you know, so you could do all that after you build your pano, but I don't know why I did it before. So I'm gonna select both of those, and I'm gonna go to photo merge, panoramic, and just gonna keep it to spherical, and then I'm gonna speed up this recording to chipmunk speed. And we're back with a panoramic that's been generated, and things are looking pretty good. Now that they're merged, I am going to look at, I want to accentuate this right here, because right now it's pretty darn subtle. So to do that, I'm actually gonna paint a little bit of a mask in here to darken this area. I want this cloud to look a bit more ominous. So first off, I'm going to leave the auto mask on. That's fine. Auto mask will just try to select similar area, so you're gonna get this cloud, but not a lot of that blue surrounding it, and that's kind of what I want, and that's fine. Yeah, so that's good. Now we're gonna drop the exposure a little bit on that. Why am I highlighting the, oh. So we're gonna go to the exposure setting, and I'm just going to drop it a little bit to make those clouds a little bit more ominous. I might tweak those towards the blue side just a bit, but that makes it a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more, my philosophy when it comes to editing in Photoshop, I don't like to introduce things that weren't already there. I'm not going to do any compositing. I'm pretty light editing when it comes to, you know, cloning and stamping and stuff like that. But what I do like to do is I like to accentuate what's already there. So since this cloud is already there and it creates this beautiful contrast, the dark over here, the light over here, I want to just accentuate that. It's really just dodging and burning for all intents and purposes. And that's just gonna rock. All right, so that's good. I've accentuated that as much as I want to. Actually, I might go a little bit further, and you'll notice that I've got a vignette here. I don't usually do a vignette, but in this case, I think a vignette works pretty well, and so I'm gonna keep it. I don't never go over 20. That's like just a general rule, -20, because then it's just like you're just beating people over the head with your vignette. So I like to keep it a little more subtle, usually no more than 8, but in this case, I'm okay with maybe the 13. And you can play with the midpoint also, whatever. Okay, so I've got a little bit of, I darkened some of that. Now we're gonna dodge, or we're gonna lighten some of this in certain areas. I wanna brighten this area up a little bit. So again, I'm gonna keep auto mask on, and I'm just going to select. I'd probably spend a little bit more time on this if I, you know, if this was for real. I don't know. I guess it is real, but I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it because that would be boring for all of you. So that's good. That's brightened this up, and it's added that orange and teal contrast that I really like and want in this photo. So that's great. I like that a lot. I probably don't like this orange up here as much though, so maybe I'll select that again, hold down the Alt key, bring down my feather, and just take that back off again. And that's pretty good. I'm gonna call that good. That is that photo done. And you know, you can just push down that backspace key to see where we came from and where we arrived, and that's always fun. That's always a validating experience. So that's that. Now I'll show you maybe one more photo. Why not? Because there's nothing else to do at 3:30 a.m. that is a good use of time. Okay, so now we're gonna look at this photo. Again, this is from that same hike. It's a pretty bland looking photo, but I know there's a lot of potential here, and when I took it, I knew there was a lot of potential. The raw just looks a little bit blah though. So I will say this, by the way, if you're still watching, if you're not bored out of your mind, if I haven't put you to sleep, the amount of time I spend editing a photo is directly proportional to the amount of joy that the photo brings me. And I really like this photo, so it's one that I don't mind spending a little bit more time on it. So looking at this photo, first off, the first thing I notice is that this rock right here is extremely distracting. So this is an area, this is a time where I don't mind doing a little clone stamping because I hate that. So, you know, let's just find a realistic, there we go, some brush that seems to blend in, some sagebrush, and that already is better. My exposure is a little on the underexposed side, at least for all of this. That's because I was exposing to the sky and I wasn't using any sort of gradient filter or anything like that, because I don't do that. Probably should, but again, I'm a sort of a lazy photographer, and so to be able to get that right, I usually expose for the highlights, and then, you know, I'm gonna pay the price a little bit in noise in here, but it's not enough that's gonna bother me or anybody else who sees it. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use the Hidden Pinion preset that I've spent a lot of time on, just and again, these are the tones that I just love. It brings out these reds, a little more of the magenta side, like I said, in these red rocks, and then it accentuates the teal. It's just lovely. I'm just thrilled with this color. I'm not trying to sell you, by the way, although if you want to buy the presets, you are welcome to. I don't know if they'll do great things for you where you live in your part of the world. If you don't have red rocks, you know, maybe they won't, but you know, for me, they work great. So this is already looking pretty good. You'll notice that it brought the shadows way up like we had before and the highlights way down. I don't necessarily need the highlights that low, probably just like right there. And then, as I mentioned before, I like to dodge and burn and kind of accentuate and draw your eye to the parts of the scene that I like. I feel like there's some light coming through this pass right here that you miss a little bit. This blends in a little more than I want. I want this to really come out because that's definitely what I saw. I'm seeing in this composition, I'm seeing a zigzag, right? This trail, this S curve in the trail that kind of leads your eyes up to this little pass. And this cloud also points down to it. I feel like this composition, I'm just really happy with it. It really points the eye here, but when you get there, you kind of miss what this has to offer. So I will, hit the Z key and zoom in, and I'm just gonna spend a little bit of time brightening up the exposure here. And maybe even making it a little more warm to just bring out the light coming through this pass as it glints off this rock especially. My screen capture technology is interfering with the performance of Lightroom, or maybe just Lightroom isn't very performant. Maybe that's what the problem is. So that's good. Too much yellow, probably just chill out on that. But and this has got to blend, so the beach ball of death is messing with my chi. What happened? Okay. All right, try that again. Here we go. Gonna brighten this all up. Again, I'd probably spend more time on this if I didn't want to bore everyone who's watching. But you get the idea. Just brighten that all up so it looks like what I saw in my head with the brightness kind of coming through that pass. I may even do something like this with a little bit of a radial glow, just right there, where it's a little warm and a little bit, create a mask on that. And I made, create a little bit of a mask, add some feathering, brush, add some feathering and just feather that back off a little bit. That probably overdid it a little bit. That's better. Good. Okay, also, in addition to that, I just want to brighten this all up and warm this all up. I want the sun to just, kind of like that other photo had. I just like it to be brighter on this side, darker over here. I don't want to go too crazy on this. I mean, you can go pretty crazy, and a lot of people do. But I just want it to be, and I'm not gonna a lot of people will be like, oh, it needs to be, when you edit it needs to be true to what you saw, the emotions you were experiencing at the time. I'm not sure that I experienced a great deal of emotion about, this cloud being this golden compared to the teal over there. That's absolutely not the case. But I'm not, maybe this is cheating or maybe this is false, but I do like adding a little bit of areas of contrast because it creates interest in the photo and sells it a little bit more. So I'm okay with that. And then the last thing I want to do is this pathway is just such an important part of this composition that I am gonna brighten that up. I'm going to dodge that up. So, again, I would spend more time on this, and I did in my actual edit that you can see on Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram, I would encourage you to do so. But yeah, warm it up, brighten it up, and just draw more attention to that pathway. And then that'd be good. And that is good. That is what we're going for. I may also just add a little bit more areas of, I might also just create a little bit more additional areas of just brightness in the photo of where I'd like the eye to spend some time, and contrast that with areas where I'm okay with the viewer not spending their time. A little bit of dodging and burning with radial masks. And that just kind of helps bring a lot of dynamic and mood and drama to the photo. So I'm liking where that's at. This is actually where I ended up with the one I spent a lot of time on. And now that I'm seeing it, I feel like it's a little too orange maybe, but anyway, so it's interesting to edit things later. It looks like maybe I did warm up the whole photo. Maybe I'll do that just a little bit because I do think this is a little too cool. So balance it up towards the yellow. Anyway, that's how I edited that photo. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that wasn't completely and utterly boring. It felt boring to me, and if it was boring to me, then it was probably boring to you, and I'll probably never do this again, but maybe people will now stop asking me to show them how I edit things. Anyway, hopefully next time we talk, it'll be a little more interesting. Hopefully I get feeling better. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again real soon.